Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really dark, hidden corner of American history. It's a story that starts with a medical mystery, something that shouldn't have been possible, and it spirals into a secret human experiment, a truth so dangerous people were literally willing to kill to keep it buried. So, let's get into it. This was the grim lesson Dr. Samuel Hartwell learned practicing medicine back in 1840s Maryland. And for him, it all started not with some big theory, but with something he saw with his own two eyes. A medical puzzle involving a newborn child that, by every law of nature, just shouldn't exist. So, it's April 1847. An enslaved infant is brought into Dr. Hartwell's clinic. Now, the baby's perfectly healthy, but the moment the child opens his eyes, the doctor gets this cold feeling. Why? Because he knew he had seen those exact, unique eyes before, months earlier, on a different child, in a totally different county. And look, we're not talking about a simple family resemblance here. Hartwell was a doctor. He was meticulous. He documented every single detail. The same strange amber color, the same specific pattern of gold flecks, that same dark ring on the iris, and get this, even the same slightly elongated shape of the left eye. This was way beyond coincidence. It was a perfect carbon copy, an impossible replication connecting two babies born 40 miles apart to mothers who had never, ever met. So what do you do when you see the impossible? Well, Hartwell couldn't let it go. He starts a quiet investigation, reaching out to his medical colleagues across Maryland, just asking, have you seen anything like this? And pretty soon he discovers this impossible pattern was much, much bigger and way more sinister than he ever could have guessed. By August of that same year, we're talking just a few months later, Hartwell and a colleague, Dr. Marcus Finley, had their answer. It wasn't 2 children, it was 13. 13 infants spread across 6 different counties, all born with the same impossibly identical eyes. The puzzle was getting bigger and darker. And this timeline, it just shows you how fast this whole thing was unfolding. All 13 of these babies were born in this really tight 9-month window. This wasn't some ancient family trait passed down through generations. No, this pointed to something recent, something coordinated. And as the 2 doctors kept digging, they finally found it. A single, disturbing link that connected every single one of those plantations. The link was an auction house. Every last one of the 13 plantations had bought enslaved people from the same place, a Baltimore firm called Chandler and Sons. And they'd all done it in the 2 years right before the births. This had to be the source. And that's when this horrifying theory started to take shape. The doctors realized the key wasn't the mothers who were sold, it was the fathers. Their investigation pointed to Chandler and Sons leasing out enslaved men. They called them specialty stock, men specifically chosen for their unique eyes, for the sole purpose of fathering children with that exact same trait. Okay, so Hartwell has this terrifying theory. But what does he do next? He goes to his mentor, Dr. Keating, for advice. But what he got wasn't guidance. It was a chilling warning. He was poking his nose into something that people would kill to keep quiet. Keating didn't mince words. He basically told him, look, stuff like this happens. The real question isn't if it happens, but if you want to be the one who gets killed for pointing it out. He told Hartwell about other doctors who'd been ruined, even murdered for asking too many questions. He begged him, for his own safety, to drop the whole thing. But Hartwell couldn't. He just couldn't let it go. So, if the official, powerful people were telling him to shut up, he'd turn to another network. He went to one of his patients, a free Black woman named Grace, who he knew was a key player in Baltimore's Underground Railroad. And Grace's answer must have just floored him. She confirmed everything. She told him the enslaved community had its own intelligence network, and they had been tracking what they called the marked children for almost a year. They knew what was happening, they just didn't know why. So with the information from Grace, and later from an escaped slave named Judith, who had actually been forced to bear one of these children, the full, horrifying picture came into focus. This wasn't random at all. It was a systematic, cold, and calculated human experiment. Here's how this monstrous system worked. First, the men with those specific eyes were leased out. Then, once children were born with the same eyes, they were allowed to stay with their mothers only long enough to be weaned, and then they were taken, ripped away from their mothers and sent to some kind of secret facility, a so-called school. Judith, the escaped mother, knew the name of the place. It was called Cross Haven Academy, out in Western Maryland. And it was run by this mysterious figure, a Dr. Theodore Cross, who had apparently been educated in Europe on the subject of heredity. And then they got the smoking gun, a stolen ledger from the auction house that laid the entire conspiracy bare. The program started back in 1844. It had already produced 47 children. It was funded by 4 of Maryland's wealthiest families, and its official title was, chillingly, Hereditary Optimization Research. The stated goal? To breed a superior class of enslaved laborers. But that wasn't even the real reason, because tucked away in Dr. Cross's private papers was the final, shocking truth. These children weren't just an experiment in breeding. They were living props. The entire twisted program was designed to create proof that slavery was a good thing, a form of managed human improvement. The ultimate goal was to use these children as propaganda to justify and expand the institution of slavery. So now they had everything. Stolen ledgers, incriminating letters. Hartwell and the Abolitionist Network had the irrefutable proof they needed. And they didn't just want to save the children still trapped. They wanted to burn the whole monstrous program right to the ground. The documents were smuggled to the great abolitionist Frederick Douglass, who helped orchestrate a public expose. The scandal was massive. State officials had no choice but to raid Crosshaven Academy. They found 41 children there who were then freed and rehomed. Chandler and Sons, the auction house at the center of it all, was forced to close its doors for good. And Dr. Hartwell, the man who uncovered it all, he kept his role a secret his entire life, a secret he took to the grave. But not every child was saved. This chart gives us a heartbreaking estimate of their fates. The biggest group, about 62%, were the ones freed in that raid. Another 23% are thought to have escaped through the Underground Railroad. But that leaves about 15%, the program's earliest victims. Their fates are a mystery, likely still deep into the South and just lost to history. And that's really the question this whole story leaves you with, isn't it? The Marked Children of Maryland, it's a haunting, documented story of one specific atrocity, but it forces you to wonder, how many other stories just like it are out there? How many other crimes and experiments remain buried forever simply because there was no one there to see them and no one brave enough to tell the tale?